10 days before New Year, the ballroom on the top floor of the Manhattan Hotel glows like a glass cage. Crystal chandeliers drip light over men in tailored suits and women in glittering gowns, every laugh sharpened by money and power. Evelyn Lane stands in the shadow of a catering station, fingers tucked under a silver mask that hides the face the city thinks is dead. Her pulse is steady, not because she is calm, but because the storm inside her has burned for so long that the fire feels like home. On the stage at the front of the room, Cole Wayne raises a champagne flute toward a giant screen that shows the logo of Starpath Capital. He smiles the way he always does for the cameras, all clean lines and practiced sincerity, like he has never lied in his life. To the future of honest innovation, Cole calls, his voice smooth as silk. The crowd erupts in applause, and Evelyn thinks every clap sounds like a nail in the coffin he built for her. 2 years ago he stood beside her on a different stage, his arm around her waist, promising they would change the world together. 2 years ago, he decided the only way to own the world was to kill her first. From her hiding place, Evelyn lifts her wrist and taps a small command on the inside of her cuff, where a slim screen glows against her skin. Lines of code flash for less than a second, invisible to everyone else, and then the ballroom plunges into darkness. Gasps slice through the room as chandeliers that cost more than most houses go black at the same time. Someone drops a glass, and the shatter sounds like gunfire in the sudden quiet. Cole curses under his breath on the stage, a word that never makes it into his interviews or speeches. "Relax, folks, minor power glitch," he starts to say. That is when the giant screen behind him flickers back to life, not with the Starpath logo, but with a stream of cold white code on a black background. No one here understands the language, but everyone understands the threat. The code clears, replaced by a frozen image of Cole shaking hands with a heavy-set man in a dark suit. A timestamp in the corner marks a date from 2 years ago, the week before Evelyn became a ghost. Audio crackles on, grainy but clear enough to cut. Cole's voice fills the room, stripped of its charm. Evelyn has to disappear, the recording Cole says. Once she is gone, the tech and the company are ours, and no one will ever trace the money. A collective inhale rolls across the ballroom. Someone whispers Evelyn's name like a prayer and a curse. On screen, the man with Cole laughs, a low greedy sound. Ronald King, hedge fund titan, the shark who swims under every rumor on Wall Street, lifts his glass in the video. "To unfortunate accidents," Ronald says in the recording. "And profitable cleanup." The lights slam back on, bright enough to make people squint. Cole stands frozen on stage, color draining from his face as guests turn toward him, their earlier adoration curdling into suspicion. He looks out over the crowd, searching for a friendly face, a lifeline, any version of the control he always thinks he has. His gaze snags on the back of the room. There, framed by the now silent catering station doors, stands a woman in a tailored black suit, a silver mask covering half her face. She walks forward with unheard steps, heels tapping a slow verdict against the marble floor. Security glances at her, then at Cole, confused by his sudden stiff posture. Evelyn stops at the edge of the stage and reaches up. Her fingers slide under the edge of the mask and lift it away. For a heartbeat the entire room forgets to breathe. She is supposed to be dead, washed out to sea in a storm that ate her car and her name. Every news channel replayed the footage of the twisted metal at the bottom of the river. Every headline called it a tragic waste of potential. But the woman in front of them has the same sharp cheekbones, the same dark eyes that once stared out from magazine covers under titles about genius and disruption. Only now those eyes hold something colder than ambition. "Good evening, Cole," Evelyn says, her voice dropping across the microphone that still hangs loose in his hand. "Happy early New Year." Cole takes one stumbling step backward. "This is impossible," he mutters. "You are dead." Evelyn smiles, and there is no warmth in it. "I tried that plan," she says lightly. "It did not stick." Murmurs ripple through the crowd, turning into a low wave of shock and curiosity. Someone in the front row lifts a phone, only to frown when the screen stays dark. Around the room, every phone is dead, every smartwatch frozen, every device cut off at the same time. Evelyn lets her gaze drift over the sea of confused faces, then flick back to Cole. 2 years ago you handed the authorities doctored logs and pretty charts, and they believed I stole from my own company," she says. "You painted me as greedy and reckless, and I let you throw me into the river in their minds." She tilts her head toward the giant screen, which now shows a list of shell companies, dates, and numbers that make bankers in the front row sit up straighter. "But I write the code in this world," she adds. "And tonight the system answers to me." Cole lifts the microphone back to his mouth with a shaking hand. "This woman is a criminal," he shouts, voice cracking over the speakers. "She is wanted by the authorities for fraud and data theft, and she somehow hacked this event. Security, get her out of here right now." Two guards move from the walls, hands near the holsters on their belts. As they step, the electronic locks on the ballroom doors slam shut with a heavy metallic click. The sound echoes like a judge's gavel. An emergency exit sign flickers, then goes dark. A hush sweeps the room under the glittering chandeliers that no longer feel friendly. "You might want to ask yourself who locked those doors, Cole," Evelyn says quietly. "Because it was not you." She taps the cuff on her wrist once more, and the giant screen behind him splits into 4 feeds. One shows video of Cole signing off on wire transfers that bounce money between accounts faster than any honest audit could follow. Another shows Ronald King in a private meeting room, laughing as he calls small investors easy meat. A third shows a buried file, timestamped the night before Evelyn's supposed fall, where server logs were rewritten to point blame directly at her. The fourth is a simple still image, a police report with Evelyn's name stamped across it, accompanied by the word guilty in red. Evelyn looks up at that final word, and then back at the crowd. "Tonight is about balance," she says. "For 2 years you let this man be your hero. You called him a self-made king, while the woman who built the kingdom drowned in the story he wrote for her. I am here to correct the narrative." Cole slams his glass down on the podium, liquid splashing over his hand. "You will never walk out of this room," he snarls, the practiced charm gone. "You think you can scare me with a few hacked videos." The ballroom screens flicker again, and then a live camera feed appears, showing the exterior of the hotel. Police cruisers and unmarked sedans are lined up at the entrance, red and blue lights reflecting off the glass. Officers talk into radios while a handful of men in suits flash badges at security. Evelyn's voice is calm when she speaks again. "I do not need to scare you, Cole," she says. "I only need to show the truth to the right eyes." Her gaze finds a man leaning against the back wall, wearing a worn dark blazer that blends in with the staff. He stands with his arms crossed, but his eyes are sharp, taking in exits, counting heads. When their eyes meet, the corner of his mouth twitches. Ian Murray does not move toward her, does not wave, does not do anything that ties them together in a room full of cameras, even disabled ones. He only straightens, ready. Cole follows her line of sight and sneers. "You brought a disgraced agent to your little show," he spits. Very on brand. The word disgraced lands like a stone in a quiet pond. People remember the headlines about the federal investigator who pushed questions too far in the same case, the one who lost his badge for refusing to sign off on the tidy story everyone else accepted. Ian ignores him, eyes never leaving Evelyn. In the back of her mind, Evelyn hears the steady hum of code, of systems she spent months mapping and bending to her will. She has one shot to keep control of this room, until the outside forces she invited decide to move. 2 years ago, you took everything from me, she says, her words sharpening with every syllable. You turned my name into a warning. You built an empire on stolen code and blood money. I promised myself if I ever stood in front of you again, it would not be to beg. It would be to end you. She steps closer, close enough now that he can see the faint scar at her hairline from the night her car went into the river. "Happy early New Year, Cole," she says softly. "I brought you a present." On the screen, a countdown clock appears in the corner, starting at 10 days. A bold line of text flashes beneath it. Public audit of Starpath Capital begins in. The room explodes into shouts, questions, fear, and excitement all tangled together. Cole's face twists as he realizes she has tied his fate to the most public countdown of the year. 10 days until New Year, 10 days until everyone with money in his empire watches his books get torn open. "You will burn with me before this is over," he hisses, low enough that the microphone does not catch it. Evelyn meets his eyes, and the ghost of the woman he betrayed flickers for only a second, before the hacker queen returns. "Then we had better make the show worth it," she answers. She turns her back on him in front of everyone, and walks away from the stage, every step a declaration that she is no longer the woman he can push off a cliff. Outside, fireworks tests crackle against the winter sky, rehearsal sparks for the show the city will watch in 10 days. Inside, the first fuse of another kind of explosion has been lit. Back in the service corridor behind the ballroom, the borrowed staff jacket hangs loose on Evelyn's shoulders. She strips it off as the door swings shut, leaving the noise of the party muffled behind her. Ian falls into step beside her without a word. They walk down the narrow hall, boots thudding on concrete. That was subtle, he says at last. Evelyn snorts before she can stop herself. I was going for unforgettable, she replies. He studies her profile, taking in the sharper angles, the weight in her eyes that was not there 2 years ago. You scared him, Ian says. Good, she answers without hesitation. He should remember what honest fear feels like. At the back exit, she pulls out a small signal jammer and clicks it off. Phones around the building blink back to life as the invisible net she cast over the ballroom dissolves. You are sure about the countdown? Ian asks, pushing open the door that leads into an alley thick with exhaust and cold air. You just painted a target on your back in front of everyone who matters in that world. Evelyn steps into the night and lifts her face to the slice of sky visible between towers. Faint stars fight for space against city light. I died in that world already, she says quietly. This is my second life. I get to decide how loud it is. Ian lets the door swing shut, the heavy metal thud cutting off the last echoes of ballroom music. For the record, you had me at public audit, he says. You always did know how to ruin a rich guy's holiday. She allows herself a small smile. Stick with me, Murray, she says. I might ruin a whole empire before we ring in the year. They move down the alley to a nondescript black sedan that looks like 1,000 others in the city. Inside, the dashboard glows with maps and data feeds instead of radio stations. Evelyn slides into the back seat, where 3 laptops wait, lids half open, blinking like patient animals. Ian takes the driver's seat, but turns sideways to watch her as she begins to type. Her fingers dance over keys with a familiarity that borders on intimate. Code spills across the screens in green and white, windows blooming and collapsing as she threads herself through security systems like a ghost through walls. Starpath is patching holes already, Ian notes, nodding toward one feed that shows network traffic spiking. His guys are good. They are loud, Evelyn corrects. Good code is quiet. Cole bought noise and called it safety. She jumps from one server to another, slipping past firewalls she designed long ago and later learned how to break from the outside. Each successful breach pings on a small map in the corner of her screen, little red marks blossoming over the digital outline of Starpath's infrastructure. This part is almost unfair, Ian says. You wrote the walls, now you are poking holes in them with a toothpick. Recycled passwords, lazy updates, bad habits, she says, tone dry. They do half my work for me. I am just here to turn the lights on in their basement. He watches the reflection of code in her eyes and thinks of the first time he saw her, before everything went wrong. Back then she stood in a glass conference room, explaining encryption to a room full of investors who wanted to believe they understood. Now she sits in the dark of a car with a stolen signal line, breaking into the empire that tried to bury her. Found you, she murmurs. On the central screen, a folder appears, locked behind layers of encryption the average person would never notice. She peels it open like skin. Inside are spreadsheets and memos that make Ian's jaw tighten. There are trading patterns designed to crush small investors, while regulators look the other way. There are emails between Cole and Ronald, laughing about pension funds as if they are a joke. At the bottom is a video file, the original version of the recording that played in the ballroom. You already had that, Ian says. Now I have where he kept it, Evelyn replies. She drags the entire structure onto a secure drive, hands moving with ruthless efficiency. This is the first cut. Enough to push regulators to look closer when we lift the curtain. The rest we use to tighten the noose. Ian leans back, mind already racing ahead to legal pathways, to who in the agencies he still trusts enough to call. You know he will try to clean house when he sees this coming, he says. He will shred everything he can reach. Evelyn finally looks away from the screen to meet his gaze. That is why we do not give him time, she answers. Everyone loves a countdown. Everyone loves a spectacle. By the time New Year hits 0, I want the city to see exactly what he built his brand on. She plugs in a small device no bigger than a thumb drive and starts another process. What is that one? Ian asks. A mirror, she says. Every time he deletes a file, I store a copy off-site. Every attempt to scrub the past becomes another note in the song that buries him. He nods slowly, weighed down by the enormity of what they are doing, and strangely lightened by it at the same time. The Bureau would have loved you on the right side of the line, he says softly. They had their chance, she replies. They chose the story that made them look efficient and clean. Now they get to watch what real cleanup looks like. The sedan hums down the highway toward a part of the city most of the party guests never think about. Neon laundromats and late-night diners slide past, places where people count tips instead of stocks. Evelyn's safe house hides above one such diner, behind a plain door marked only by a peeling number. Inside it smells like coffee, old paper, and the faint ozone of warmed electronics. Rows of monitors line one wall, cables snaking across the floor like roots. A world map glows on the central screen, dotted with servers she has bent to her will from around the globe. She drops her coat on a chair and sits at the main desk, bodies of hardware around her like a fortress. Ian walks the perimeter, checking locks and the tiny cameras she embedded in corners. "You think he will come after you physically?" he asks. "I think men like Cole only understand threats when they wear skin," she answers. "He will tighten digital walls because that is what his experts tell him to do. When that does not stop me, he will remember that the easiest way to quiet a problem is to pull a trigger. So yes, he will send someone with a gun when the numbers stop making sense." Ian flexes his hand, remembering the weight of his own service weapon before it was taken from him and locked away behind an internal affairs badge. "You got me for that part," he says. She glances at him and sees the familiar stubborn line of his jaw. "You already lost your badge for me," she says quietly. "You do not owe me a second fall." "I did not fall," he counters. "They pushed me because I would not lie. There is a difference." She holds his gaze for a breath and then nods. 10 days, she says. 10 days to peel him down to bone. "You in?" He lifts one shoulder. "I was in the minute I watched them drag your name through the mud," he replies. "I am just glad you finally decided to come back and help." A quick reluctant smile flashes across her face and is gone. "Then let us wreck a kingdom," she says. The next days blend into a pattern of sleepless hours. Evelyn moves through networks like water, exploiting every lazy patch, every forgotten port, every blind trust in software she once designed. She seeds anonymous tips to financial journalists, enough to make them sniff at rumors of insider trading and market manipulation. She sends carefully curated data packets to a handful of regulators who still flinch at the idea of another public scandal on their record. She does not give them everything, not yet. You do not waste your strongest proof on the first move. Ian spends his days on phones and in shadows. He meets old colleagues in loud cafes, sliding manila envelopes across tables with the same casual motions that used to be covered by official clearances. He listens to whispers about Ronald King's private meetings and the offshore accounts that supposedly do not exist. Sometimes he comes back to the safe house with a split lip or bruised knuckles, proof that not everyone on the other side is as fond of conversation as he is. Evelyn never asks for details, but she always cleans the cuts with gentle hands, her jaw tight. On the fourth night, as a thin winter rain taps against the windows, one of Evelyn's screens flashes red. She swivels toward it so fast her chair squeaks. "What is it?" Ian asks, rising from the couch where he has been half asleep with a file in his lap. "Cole finally noticed the bleeding," she says. "He just authorized a full-scale security audit. He is bringing in outside mercenary coders to scrub his systems." "Can they throw you out?" Ian asks. Evelyn shakes her head, fingers already moving to adjust her footholds. "Not completely. They can make my path less comfortable. They can shut some doors I like. But they cannot change the fact that I know where his weak beams are. And they do not know that every defensive wall they build makes for a more dramatic collapse when I pull the right piece out." On another screen, stock tickers crawl in restless color. Starpath's price wobbles, slightly off its normal confident climb. A rumor here, a whisper there, the barely visible tremor before an earthquake. Evelyn leans back and studies the pattern like a musician listening for the right moment to drop the beat. "Tomorrow we start phase 2, she says. Capital pressure." Ian nods slowly. "Make his empire look fragile, so he makes desperate moves," he says. "Desperate men leave trails. And trails break kings," she replies. She turns back to her screens, the glow painting her face in cold blues and greens. Far above the city, in a glass tower office, Cole stares at his own screens with growing unease. Every attempt to chase the source of the ballroom hack dead ends in empty servers, in addresses that loop back on themselves. Every call he makes to trusted contacts is met with the kind of silence that means no one wants to be on a sinking ship. "You are overreacting," one of his senior managers assures him in a morning meeting. "This is a flare-up, that is all. Markets forget. We launch a charity event, a transparent communication plan, and people will move on." Cole looks at the woman, at the neatly aligned files in front of her, and wishes he could borrow her faith. He knows the face he saw on that stage was real. He knows that no random hacker could have moved through his systems like that, triggering locks and screens he believed were safe. He knows Evelyn better than any of these people, and that knowledge tastes like fear in his mouth. When the manager leaves, he closes the office door and picks up a phone that never shows up on his records. She is alive, Cole says when the other line connects. The silence that follows is heavy. Then Ronald's voice comes through, slow and unimpressed. Obviously, Ronald says. I saw the feed. You let a dead girl walk into your party and slap you in front of your donors. That is a new low, even for you. She has proof, Cole says, words tumbling over one another. She is playing something bigger than a simple smear. If she drops everything at once, we are finished. Ronald exhales like he is bored. You are already jittery, and we are only a few days into this circus, he says. Calm down. You are talking like someone who forgot how many people owe us their quiet. She releases too much at once. She drags enough names into the light that they will bury her all over again. Cole presses his palm to his forehead, fighting the urge to slam that forehead against the glass wall. What if she does not care anymore, he asks. What if she burns herself to take us down? Then you remove the fuel, Ronald replies. She cannot press a button if she does not have hands. Find her, shut her down, and I will take care of whatever mess is left on the market. The line goes dead with a soft click. Cole stares at the phone, feeling something in his chest harden. The fear does not leave, but it has a new edge now. One that feels like resolve twisted into a weapon. He buzzes his assistant. Get me Victor, Cole says when the young man appears in the doorway. The security consultant from the West Coast. Tell him I am ready to pay for a real solution. Victor nods and disappears. Cole turns back to the city spread out below his windows, a grid of lights and movement that once bowed under his hand. He imagines Evelyn somewhere in that maze, watching him. Come on then, he murmurs to the glass. If you think you can win this game, show me. 2 days later, Phase 2 begins. On financial news channels, commentators start to ask careful questions about Star Path's sudden opacity. One outlet runs a short segment about an anonymous whistleblower who claims the company has been hiding losses. On social media, accounts that look like regular users share screenshots of odd trade patterns that always seem to favor the same funds. Behind each screen name is Evelyn, or someone she nudged with the right piece of information. StarPath's stock dips farther. Not a crash, not yet, but enough to make nervous investors call their advisors. At the same time, Evelyn, under her night owl identity, begins to quietly accumulate positions that will explode in value if StarPath falls. Every move she makes is calculated to look opportunistic, not personal. On paper, she is just another predator circling a limping animal. In reality, she is building the shape of the cage that will snap shut. At the safe house, Ian watches it all unfold with a mix of admiration and unease. You are twisting 100 little knives at once, he says as another article goes live. You sure none of those cuts hit the wrong people? Evelyn's jaw tightens. There are always collateral tremors when you topple something this big, she says. I am trying to carve around the people who have no idea what game they were pulled into. That is why I am giving regulators enough evidence to act, not just blowing the whole thing up from the outside. You trust them now, he asks, lifting an eyebrow. She shakes her head. I trust their fear of being blamed, she answers. Fear is a better motivator than morality. He cannot argue with that. He just wishes the world made it less true. Near the end of the week, Ian comes back with news that makes the air in the room drop a degree. He hired muscle, Ian says, tossing a folder onto the table. Real quiet type. Ex-military. No fixed address. Cash-only jobs. They started asking about you at old Starpath haunts. Evelyn looks at the photos paper clipped inside. Grainy images of men lingering near the building, where she once spent 16 hours a day. One face stands out, a man with a scar down his neck and eyes that never face the camera dead on. They will not find me through the company, she says. Whatever traces of my old life were left, I burned them months ago. Ian shakes his head. They do not need to find you through code or offices, he says. They only need a person who remembers you enough to identify you in a crowd. He opens another folder. A photo of a woman in her mid-20s, smiling awkwardly at a farewell party. Evelyn feels something twist in her gut. Maya, she says. My assistant. She got a promotion after you died, Ian says. Then a quiet demotion. She is still in the building, but her badge does not open as many doors. She drinks alone at a bar 2 blocks from the office on Fridays. Guess who just started showing up at the same bar? Evelyn closes her eyes for a second. Guilt and anger collide in her chest. I dragged her into this by existing, she says. No, Ian replies. Cole dragged her in by using anyone he could reach. You can still decide how far that drag goes. She opens her eyes and meets his. What do you propose, she asks. We get to her before he does, he says simply. We flip the script. Turn his attempt at leverage into another nail in his coffin. She looks back at Maya's picture. The younger woman once brought her coffee during all-night coding sessions and argued about playlist choices. Maya insisted they needed at least one cheesy pop song to stay awake. Evelyn had pretended to be annoyed and then added two. I cannot let him hurt her for something she never chose, Evelyn says. Then we make sure he does not, Ian answers. The bar is dim and narrow, the kind of place where regulars nurse drinks that taste like regret and stubbornness. Maya sits on a stool at the far end, hunched over a glass of something amber. The scar-necked man stands 2 stools away, pretending not to watch her, his reflection in the mirror behind the bar betraying him. Evelyn sits in a booth near the back, hair tucked under a knit cap, a cheap jacket hiding the cut of the suit she wore to the hotel. Ian leans against the wall near the bathrooms, just another man scrolling through his phone. She looks older. Evelyn murmurs into the small microphone near her collar. You all do. Ian replies quietly through her earpiece. 2 years leaves marks, some visible, some not. Wait for him to move, she says. Once he makes contact, we step in as the rescue, not the threat. Minutes stretch. The man finally picks up his drink and sidles closer to Maya. He makes some casual comment about the game on the television above the bar. She answers with a polite nod and a small smile that never reaches her eyes. He keeps talking. Ian shifts, ready. Evelyn watches the way Maya grips the edge of her stool. Then the man says something and slides a folded paper toward her. Maya freezes. Her eyes drop to the paper, then flick around the bar, suddenly wide and sharp. Evelyn recognizes that look. Maya might not be a hacker, but she has always been smart. She knows when something is off. The man leans closer, and that is Ian's cue. He pushes off the wall and strides toward them with the easy walk of a stranger who believes the world belongs to him. Hey, Ian says loudly, clapping a hand on the man's shoulder. There you are, I have been looking for you. The man turns, frowning. Ian's fist connects with his jaw before the sentence is finished. The punch sends the man stumbling into a table, glasses rocking. The bartender shouts, and everyone turns to stare. Sorry, Ian calls, grabbing the man's collar as he lunges back at him. Wrong guy. Thought he was someone else. The excuse is thin, but the suddenness of the fight and the messy confusion work in his favor. While attention is on the men, Evelyn moves. She slips to Maya's side, keeping her voice low and urgent. Maya, listen to me, Evelyn says. Maya turns, the color draining from her face as she sees who is speaking. Her glass slips from her hand and shatters. That is not possible, Maya whispers. You are dead. Not tonight, Evelyn answers. I do not have time to explain everything, but if you stay here you could get hurt because of me. Please, come with me now. Shock wars with instinct in Maya's eyes. In the end, the instinct that once trusted Evelyn to lead a small team through impossible deadlines wins. Maya nods, legs trembling as she stands. Evelyn ushers her toward the back exit, while Ian drags the scar-necked man outside through the front, both of them shouting curses loud enough to keep eyes turned that way. In the alley behind the bar, Maya presses her back to the brick wall, breathing hard. The air smells like trash and rain. This is insane, Maya says. If you are alive, why did you not call? Why did you let everyone think you stole from us? Evelyn opens her mouth and closes it again. The real answer is long and filled with choices she is not proud of, but there is one piece she can give now. If I had let them know I survived, they would have gone after everyone near me, she says. That includes you. Staying dead kept you safer for a while. Now Cole is desperate, and desperate men make new choices. Maya swallows, eyes shining. What was on that paper? Evelyn asks gently. Maya looks down at her hands, then pulls a folded sheet from her pocket where she slipped it when the fight started. It is a photo of Evelyn in a candid shot from the old days, laughing at something off camera. Under it, a number and a note. If you see her, call. Generous reward. Maya hands it over with fingers that shake. I would never, she says. I do not care what they said you did. I knew it had to be a lie. You never touched client money without triple security. You yelled if anyone tried to take shortcuts. You were harsh sometimes, but you were never dirty. Evelyn feels a lump rise in her throat. Thank you, she says softly. But tonight, your belief comes with a price. Cole will know someone interrupted his approach. He will suspect you. He might come at you another way. Maya looks like she wants to collapse and run at the same time. What do I do? She whispers. You tell the truth, Evelyn says. When the time comes, you testify. Everything you saw. Everything you were asked to look away from. I will protect you as much as I can until then. Testify to who? Maya asks. Evelyn glances at Ian, who has just rounded the corner, rubbing his knuckles. To the people who finally have to listen this time, Evelyn answers. The ones who were too quick to sign off before. Ian will walk you through it. He used to be very official before he remembered his spine. Maya looks between them, then laughs once, a short shocked sound. This is the worst movie I have ever been in, she mutters. I did not even buy a ticket. Welcome to the third act, Ian says. We are working on a better ending. Back at the safe house, they lay out everything Maya knows. Her memories fill in small gaps in Evelyn's digital map, human details that do not show up in logs. The late-night meetings, the strange instructions, the days when Cole walked around with a new kind of swagger after secret calls with Ronald. By the time dawn stains the sky pink, they have a witness statement that makes Evelyn's evidence even harder to ignore. It also makes something else clear. Cole is ready to cross more lines. He confirmed Maya would not sell her out for money, and chose intimidation instead. The next step flows with brutal logic. He will escalate, Ian says. If he cannot buy silence and cannot scare it, he will work with people who do not mind making it permanent. Evelyn looks at the map of Starpath's network, and beyond it at a mental map of New York streets. We escalate first, she says. We make it impossible for him to move without stepping into a trap. She reaches for her keyboard, and Phase 3 begins. Starpath's stock takes a sharper drop 2 days before New Year. A leaked internal memo hits the press, showing executives scrambling to explain missing funds. Regulators announce a preliminary review on live television, using phrases like potential irregularities and investor protection. Cole watches the broadcast in his office, a vein throbbing in his temple. He slams his fist into the glass once the camera cuts back to the smiling anchor. She is doing this, he snarls. She is pulling strings in every corner. His current security chief, a man named Harris, stands stiffly near the door. We still cannot trace the main source of the leaks, Harris says. Every path loops back through a maze of false leads. We believe she is using infrastructure established before she left. Before she died, you mean? Cole snaps. She did not leave, Harris. She went over a guardrail and sank because she trusted me. The admission slips out and hangs between them, ugly and real. Harris clears his throat. Removing her was not my department, he says carefully. My responsibility is now. And now, we can try a different approach. Cole turns to face him, eyes bloodshot. If you suggest another press campaign, or some sympathy interview, I will throw you through that window, he says. Harris does not flinch. I was thinking of something less public, he replies. We find her, we take her off the board, we destroy her hardware, and we frame her for a last desperate attempt to cash out of the chaos she created. Cole breathes out slowly. Ronald already hinted at the same direction, he says. You think you can find her where your best coders could not? I think coders look at lines of code, Harris says. I look at people. People need places to sleep and eat. Even ghosts. Someone has kept her fed and sheltered. We find that someone, we find her. He walks to a wall covered with city maps and pins. He rests his finger on a neighborhood far from the financial district. Word in certain circles is that a former bureau agent has been sniffing around dangerous clients without a badge, Harris says. He lost his job 2 years ago asking questions about the same case that killed your partner. I do not believe in coincidences. Cole's lips curl. Ian Murray, he says slowly. He always did have an annoying habit of being right at the worst times. He steps closer to the map. You think he knows where she is? I think he would rather swallow glass than let her get hurt again, Harris answers. Which makes him exactly the kind of person you can use, if you are willing to squeeze. Cole looks at the map and sees routes. See corners where a man could disappear and cameras that might catch a shadow anyway. He smiles, thin and sharp. Then we squeeze, he says. The squeeze comes quicker than Ian expects. He is on his way back from meeting a contact when he spots the tail. A sedan that stays just a little too perfectly behind him through turns. He does not go home. He drives to a crowded supermarket instead, weaving through families and carts, until he slips out a side door on foot. By the time he gets back to the safe house, his breathing is tight, and his shoulders are tense. You got followed, Evelyn says the moment he steps inside. He stares at her, then at the screen behind her that shows the feed from the cameras outside their building. You saw, he says. 2 blocks back, she replies. I could have tripped their engine from here, but that would have been an obvious tell. I needed to see how you handled it. He pulls off his jacket and tosses it onto a chair harder than necessary. I handled it by giving us an even bigger target, he says. Congratulations to me. Evelyn stands and crosses the room, stopping just in front of him. Do not do that, she says softly. Do not take their choices onto your shoulders. You did not hire the tail. You just refused to be the obedient fall guy when they needed one. He exhales, some tension draining. So now what? He asks. Now we move the timeline up, she says. We do not wait for New Year to blow this open. We use the event they are already planning and turn it into their trial. He frowns. What event? She taps a key, and an invite appears on one of the screens. New Year Charity Gala, hosted by Cole Wayne and Starpath Capital. All proceeds to digital literacy programs. Cole's face smiles from the banner, perfectly lit, perfectly framed. He is using a party to clean his image, Ian says, disgust curling his lip. Classic distraction move. Everyone he needs to impress will be there, Evelyn says. So we crash it from the inside and the outside. We feed regulators enough proof that they cannot ignore the chance to walk in front of cameras and look like heroes. We make sure the media has a front row seat. We remove his exits one by one until the only direction he can run is straight into a pair of cuffs. Ian nods slowly, a grim smile forming. New Year fireworks and a public arrest, he says. You always did have a flair for visuals. I spent years learning how to make people look where I wanted them to look, she says. Time to use that against the man who stole my spotlight. The preparations for the gala feel like loading bullets. Evelyn infiltrates the event's tech infrastructure days in advance, hiding code in harmless playlists and lighting schedules. She rigs the main screen so that at a precise moment, it will override whatever speech Cole is giving. She sets up mirrored drives that send evidence packets to pre-written emails if certain conditions are met. If power is cut, the files go out. If the network is severed, they go out. If she does not manually reset the countdown from her cuff that night, they go out. Ian coordinates with a small circle of allies, people who owe him favors and people who owe the truth more than they owe their current bosses. He arranges for federal officers and financial regulators to attend the gala officially and unofficially. He feeds select journalists just enough to guarantee they will show up with cameras ready and questions sharpened. Maya meets with a lawyer in a neutral office and signs statements that will be ready the moment someone chooses to listen. 2 nights before New Year, Ian finds Evelyn on the rooftop above the safe house, leaning against the low wall as the city lights flicker below. Her hair whips around her face in the cold wind. You should be sleeping, he says as he walks over. You should be telling me that from a comfortable couch instead of standing up here freezing, she replies. He joins her at the edge, hands in his pockets. You ready? He asks. She looks straight ahead at the skyline. 2 years ago I went off a bridge thinking that was the end of my story, she says quietly. Now I am about to write the ending with my own hands. I am not sure ready is the word, but I am done hiding. He studies her profile, the way the city light outlines her. You know, he says, voice softer than the wind, I never believed you were dead. Everyone else did, she replies. Even I tried to believe it for a while. Being dead meant I did not have to feel the weight of what they did. I requested to see your file, Ian says. The photos, the report, the whole neat narrative. I looked at your supposed car at the bottom of that river, and I could not shake the feeling that the script was too perfect. Too convenient for the people who needed closure without truth. She turns to face him, eyes searching his. Why did you care so much? She asks. You barely knew me. He laughs once. I knew enough, he says. I knew you fought with every official in the room when they tried to cut corners on security. I knew you looked me straight in the eye the first time we met and said if you ever saw me sign off on bad code, you would personally drag me in front of my boss. I knew that someone like that does not suddenly decide to steal from everyone she built something for. And maybe I knew something else too. What? She asks. He takes a breath. That I wanted to see what you would do when someone finally pushed you too far, he says. It was selfish, in a way. I wanted to watch you burn down the right target. A real smile tugs at her mouth then, small but bright. You are about to get the front row seat you dreamed of, she says. His gaze softens. Not the only thing I dreamed of, he says. But one step at a time. She looks away before the warmth in his eyes can sink too deep under her skin. One step at a time, she echoes. New Year arrives on a night so cold the air itself feels sharp. The hotel hosting Cole's charity gala is wrapped in light, banners proclaiming hope and progress and community. Inside, the rich and powerful drift through decorated halls, their laughter rising above the soft music. Evelyn walks among them in a dress the color of midnight, a simple mask covering her upper face. Her cuff rests against her pulse, her coat hidden under silk. Ian wears a tuxedo that fits better than he feels ready for. His expression is blank, the kind he used in old undercover days. To anyone watching, they are just two more guests in a sea of glitter. To the systems humming behind the walls, they are master keys wrapped in skin. In a control room 2 floors down, Harris watches camera feeds. His men are planted throughout the gala, their eyes peeled not just for Evelyn, but for any sign that tonight will not go to plan. He does not see the moment when the music playlist shifts, loading a file that carries more than songs. He only hears the soft change in tempo and dismisses it. On stage, Cole adjusts his cuffs and looks out over the crowd as the host introduces him. He steps into the light, smile in place, speech notes tucked into the inner pocket of his jacket. "Thank you for being here tonight," Cole begins. "This year has challenged us all, in markets and in our private lives. But I have always believed that challenge is an invitation to do better, to be better." He launches into a story about a young coder in a poor neighborhood who got a scholarship from StarPath. The crowd makes the appropriate noises. In the back of the room, Evelyn stands near a column, hands clasped to hide the tiny motion, as she taps the command that will shift the narrative. Above Cole's head, the giant screen glitches. The charity logo flickers, replaced for a second by static. He glances back, smile tightening, then continues. "I started StarPath with the dream of opening doors that had been locked for too long," he says. The screen settles on a new image. Not the logo. Evelyn's police report, blown up so large that the word guilty leaps out at everyone. The room gasps. Cole stops speaking. 2 years ago, you were told this woman betrayed you, a voice says over the speakers. It is not Cole's voice, not the host's. It is Evelyn, filtered to a clear neutral tone. You were told she stole from her clients and tried to cover her tracks, that she died running from the truth. The screen shifts again. This time it shows the original doctored server logs that framed her. Then it splits down the middle, half the fake logs, half the real ones she recovered, highlighting the edits line by line. You were given a story that made your world neat. Evelyn's voice continues. But neat is not the same as true. Camera flashes begin to pop in the crowd as journalists lift devices. They are allowed to work tonight. Evelyn made sure of that. Cole looks out and sees the realization spreading, like a slow burn catching dry leaves. He looks toward the back of the room and finally spots her, mask or not. "Evelyn," he snarls into the microphone, forgetting every media lesson he has ever learned. "You are not welcome here." "You are right," she replies, stepping forward into a patch of light. "This is not my world anymore. I am only here to return something you dropped." She lifts her cuff hand, taps twice, and the screen floods with evidence. Emails, transfer orders, audio clips of his private calls with Ronald, each one stacked by date, each one annotated. On one feed, a live split screen shows agents from the financial regulator walking through the lobby downstairs. Another shows federal officers checking in with security. The regulators walking into your party tonight are the same ones who signed off on the story that killed me, Evelyn says. They have new information now. They have the logs you edited, the accounts you hid, the testimony of your own people. This is their second chance to do their job. The regulator in charge, a woman with tired eyes and a straight spine, steps into view at the edge of the stage. Microphones swing toward her. "Based on new evidence, we are opening a full investigation into StarPath Capital and its leadership," she says clearly. "Effective immediately." Cole laughs, the sound high and brittle. "This is a stunt," he declares. "A show put on by a bitter ex-founder and a disgraced agent with a grudge. You cannot take this seriously." A new voice cuts through the noise. "I can." Maya steps out from the crowd, clothes simple compared to the gowns around her, but her gaze steady. She climbs the steps to the stage, legs shaking only a little. "I worked for you when you framed her," Maya says into a microphone a staffer shoves toward her. "I saw the late-night meetings. I saw you pressure the compliance team to sign off on things that did not add up. I was there when you changed logs and told us to pretend we never saw the original lines." Cole's face goes pale. "You are confused," he says. "You have no idea how to read those files. You were a junior assistant. I was not confused when you bragged that regulators were lazy and investors were sheep, she replies, voice gaining strength. And I am not confused now. You cut my access when I asked questions. You pushed me into a corner and hoped I would stay quiet. She looks out at the crowd. I am done being quiet. The room vibrates with whispers and the scratch of pens. Evelyn stands at the foot of the stage now, close enough to see sweat bead at Cole's temple. Ian appears at her side, a solid presence in the chaos. Above them all, the countdown to midnight ticks on one small corner of the screen, a reminder that the whole city is about to watch the sky explode. You could have walked away rich, Evelyn says, her voice no longer over the speakers but still carrying. You had enough after the first lie. You could have chosen to stop. But you did not. You kept cutting and hiding and laughing. You turned everyone who trusted you into a resource to be mined. He looks at her, and for a flash, beneath the panic, there is something like hate mixed with a memory of the man he once pretended to be. You were always naive, he says. You thought the world could be clean if you just coated it tight enough. You do not win by being clean. You win by being the one who writes the rules. I learned that, she answers softly. That is why I stopped playing by yours. The federal officers step forward, badges glinting. Mr. Wayne, one says. You need to come with us. Cole looks around wildly, searching for Ronald, for anyone who might pull him out of this. Ronald is nowhere to be seen. He is in another building across town, watching his own screens as agents knock on his door. The safety net Cole believed in has been cut from both ends. Do not touch me, Cole shouts as the officers take his arms. My lawyers will tear this apart. You think you can parade me in front of cameras like some trophy. You will all regret this. His voice cracks once more, the last scrap of control shredding. The cameras catch every second. As they lead him away, the big screen behind him shows one final image. A line of text from one of his private messages to Ronald. If it all goes wrong, she takes the fall, not us. The room reads it in unison. There is no neat story left to hide behind. The regulators turn to face the crowd, fumbling through statements about integrity and accountability. The donors begin to distance themselves, their social media staff already drafting posts. Evelyn steps back, the edges of her vision shimmering with adrenaline and exhaustion. Ian touches her elbow lightly. You did it, he says. For now, she answers. Trials take time. Memory is short. He will have defenders. You cannot fix how everyone reacts, Ian says. But tonight, you dragged the truth out of the dark. That matters. She looks up at the screen, where her old police report still lingers in a corner, now stamped not with guilty, but with a red line of text she programmed to appear when a certain condition was met. Case reopened. It matters to me, she says quietly. The countdown on the screen hits 0. Outside, fireworks roar into the sky. The ballroom empties in scattered clumps, guests hurrying out to avoid being in too many background shots. On a rooftop terrace above the main hall, the air is colder and clearer. Evelyn leans on the railing, watching streaks of color bloom and fade over Manhattan. Her breath fogs in front of her. For the first time in 2 years, each inhale does not feel like dragging air through water. Ian steps up beside her with 2 paper cups of terrible coffee from the staff station. This is a crime against beans, he says, taking a sip. But it is hot. She laughs, the sound surprising both of them. I will take hot and terrible over cold and drowning, she says. He hands her a cup. They watch the sky in silence for a while, the boom of fireworks echoing against steel and glass. You know what I am thinking, Ian says at last. That you want to sleep for a week, she guesses. Also that, he says. But mostly I am thinking you deserve to choose something for yourself that is not revenge. She turns toward him, cup warming her hands. And what does that look like, she asks. He studies her, the lines of her face, the stubborn tilt of her chin, the spark that never quite went out even when she was hiding. It looks like building something new where you are not waiting for the next knife, he says. It looks like using that terrifying brain on something that feeds you instead of eating you. It looks like not doing it alone. Her heart gives a strange little lurch. You offering to be my board of directors, she asks, trying to keep it light. I was thinking something more permanent, he replies. He sets his cup down on the railing and reaches into his pocket. When his hand comes out, it holds a ring that catches the fireworks in tiny sparks. The band is simple, embedded with a thin ring of etched code, binary lines that only someone like her would read at a glance. Her breath catches. I swear if that code spells out something cheesy, she warns, voice wavering. It spells out your name, and the word home, he says. which I think is pretty on the nose, but I am a simple man. He drops to one knee on the cold stone. He does not do it with a joke or a grand speech. His eyes are just steady, the way they were when he refused to sign the report that buried her. Evelyn, Ian says. We survived lies and rivers, and a man who thought he owned the sky. We burned down an empire, and now there is nothing left for him to take from you. I want whatever comes next with you. All of it. Will you marry me? Tears blur her vision. For a second she sees herself on that bridge 2 years ago, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, wind screaming through broken glass as water rushed up to meet her. She remembers the split second she unbuckled and dove instead of waiting to be swallowed. Every choice since then converges in this quiet space above a roaring city. She sets the coffee cup down and drops to her knees in front of him, laughing through the tears. You really picked tonight to do this, she says. Timing is everything, he replies. So is consent, she says, voice shaking. Yes. Yes, Ian, I will marry you. He slips the ring onto her finger. The metal is cool against her skin, then warm. Someone below cheers at a particularly bright firework, the sound floating up like a blessing. Ian leans in and kisses her, careful at first, then with a tenderness that tastes like overdue promises. She kisses him back, feeling her heartbeat sink with the distant bursts in the sky. When they pull apart, she presses her forehead to his. What now, she whispers. Now we make sure they cannot rewrite this story without you, he says. You take back your company on your terms. You build something better. And when the world forgets the fine print, I will be right here to remind them who you are. She looks down at the city, at the streets filled with people who have no idea their portfolios nearly became collateral in one man's hunger. We will need a new name, she says. For what we build. Starpath is poisoned. Ian considers. Night Owl Capital has a ring to it, he says. She smiles. Too dramatic, she says. What about something that does not center the darkness? We walked through it already. She thinks of rivers and bridges and screens lighting up with truth. She thinks of code etched into a ring, and the way his hand felt when he reached for hers under that awful coffee light. Second light, she says finally. Second chances. Second sunrise. The moment after the explosion when you realize you are still here. He grins. Second light it is, he says. Founding documents to be written after actual sleep. She laughs again, raw and real. Down below, sirens wail as police cars escort Cole away from the building. Across town, Ronald King watches his own empire crack under scrutiny. In offices and living rooms, people stare at screens full of evidence and wonder how they ever believed the simpler story. On a rooftop under fading fireworks, a woman once declared dead wraps her fingers around the new ring on her hand and the hand holding it. Her enemies are finally caged by their own greed. Her name is no longer a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms. It will be the signature at the bottom of contracts that protect the people her enemies tried to exploit. Evelyn Lane closes her eyes as the last firework blooms. For the first time in years, she does not see water above her or code rushing past in panic. She sees a blank screen waiting for the next line, and for once, she is not afraid to write it.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.